Hello and welcome to the Beyond Business as Usual interview series. My name is Philippe Dubreuil. I am your host, and today I have the pleasure to discuss entrepreneurship, um, business growth, various other things having to do with business, with Alisha Poor, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Capital Med Solutions. Alisha,
That's
welcome
right.
to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Philippe. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
That's great. Now, Alicia, let's just kick it off right off the bat here with a little bit about you, who you are, as a person, and your journey, if you can. Give us some details on this, as well as what is Capital Med Solutions?
Sure, absolutely, Philippe. So my journey has been I've been in oil and gas, I've been in healthcare. So I've been in healthcare space for about 12 years now. I've worked with everything on the accounting side. My background is in accounting, did some internal auditing. And then I worked as a project manager and IT project manager for some time. I've worked for some really great organizations, multi-specialty practices. I've worked for corporate America. And then Capital Med Solutions was born right in the middle of COVID. So, I think as we all know, there's a lot of need in the healthcare space for efficiency improvement, process improvement, things like that, right? So I think during COVID, we kind of had a little bit of downtime with work and things like that. And I'm such a busybody that I said, hey, you know what? Let's do something here. Let's do something with this time that we have and let's help some patients, let's help some providers. So basically, Capital Med Solutions was born as a RCM, medical billing and coding type of a organization. And then we stacked up and built upon it as we saw that there were needs that, from the such as we have your virtual assistants, we have staffing, we do contracting, credentialing. We're doing, of course, still the medical billing and coding aspect of things. We're doing insurance verification, pre-authorization services. We're doing digital marketing now. So we've really expanded ourselves, and we call ourselves like the one-stop shop solution. So we're able to kind of cater and tailor, make things to practices that are enterprise level, all the way down to those providers that are just starting off that have no idea what to do. Because doctors really go to school for medicine. They're not going to school for business. Of course, some of them have a business acumen, but they still need a little bit of guidance, and that's what we're here to do. We're really here to help empower the providers, and we're here to help with helping patient engagement grow within practices. Because ultimately, when something is going wrong in any aspect or any area of business, when it comes to healthcare, the person that suffers is going to be the patient. So we're very, very passionate about having a patient-centric environment. So that's kind of what a little bit about me, a little bit about Capital Med Solutions.
It's great. I mean, I love the mission. I love the goal. Um, as someone who's been consulting medical doctors and dentists and private practitioners, I totally understand where you're coming from. Again, the doctors, they start with a with a desire to help through medicine their patients, but you need a you need a structure to get people in, to get them billed, to get them treated, to follow up, and all of that stuff. And it's admirable to see the assistance you can bring to a doctor so he can concentrate. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's almost like we'll take care of everything else so you can concentrate on the patient, so you can give them the best care that you can possibly give them. Am I pretty much on the mark on this one?
You're spot on. You're spot on. So, and you're in Canada, right, Philippe?
Yeah, I'm in Canada. We have a different healthcare system here. It's a bit of a mix, dentists, chiropractors, and there's some private aspect of it. Lots of it are more state funded, right?
But I'm
However,
sure that your challenges are very similar to, in terms of maybe not the RCM or the billing aspect, but maybe from a staffing perspective, especially with, the change in landscape of the economy, especially after COVID, it has become very challenging for private practices really to survive. And so helping them reduce that cost by doing, a little bit of a mixed and hybrid approach where you have some staff that's on site that's really essential, and then maybe outsourcing some of those staff that is not really needed. but making sure that, when you're a provider looking for something, a provider or a service provider that is giving you not only the quality, because there are a lot of companies out there that do virtual staffing, virtual assistant, but what are their best practices, right? So some of the best practices that we have looked at, while we're looking at some of our competitors is, are we measuring KPIs? Are we doing call recordings? Are we providing feedback to the providers? Are the providers in their practice, are they providing feedback to us? So having that synergy between Capital Med Solutions and the practice is very, very important. And I think that's really the key to the success in terms of the staffing.
100%, 100%. I mean, I totally, and the staffing part, you mentioned the staffing. I don't know in the US, but I know in Canada, especially in the do you deal with a lots of dentists? Yeah. In Canada, after COVID, because dentists, they work in the mouth, dental hygienists, lots of them decided not to renew their license. They said, okay, I'm done with this. So we end up with a shortage of hygienists here. I don't know if the same thing happened with you guys over there in the US, if you have something like this, but I'm like going in the dental field, finding a good staff, it's a war zone, unfortunately. How is it in the US for you guys? What's your pulse on this? I'm interested.
Yeah, it has been. I think we do work with dentists as well. Medical is our primary, but we have a lot of dental practices that we work with on the marketing aspect of things. So, helping with them, helping their growth. Because another thing that happens is when, dentists are the ones that go for a lot of marketing initiatives, right? Not so much medical. But when they sign up for something with marketing and they have a patient influx and they have, leads coming in, lead generation, who's going to take the calls? Who's going to actually convert those in? So that's where we come in. We help them with we deploy a call center for them where we have our sales team that helps them convert the leads. But as far as, the landscape goes, yes, it's very challenging. It's very challenging to find, have retention, whether it's in the medical or the dental space, finding quality. So when you're really driving a mission within your organization, I think that helps with retention too. And I think that's how we've been able to be successful with keeping a lot of our staff. So we haven't had much of a turnover because we do keep our profit margins a little bit on the lower side, but we want to make sure that we're, whether you're outsourcing, here in the States, or you're outsourcing in Mexico or Venezuela or wherever it is, or Pakistan, India, you still want to be able to compete with salaries, right? And that's really hard to do in North America, I think, as a whole right now. Well, I know for sure in Canada and in the US, Mexico maybe a little bit, the prices are hiking up there too now, but it is hard. It's difficult for getting good staff that really cares, because they look for two things, right? When you're a employee, you're looking for, does my company have a greater purpose, and are they paying me well? So are you on par with both of those things? And if you are, then and therefore it will translate into monetary gains.
Now you've built a pretty good company yourself. Again, you mentioned a little bit mission, purpose. I'd like to hear about the values, the core values on which you build Capital Med Solution. How does that translate for your company?
Yeah, some of the core values here are the integrity, right? Having integrity within your organization. You have to be a leader that really exemplifies, what you believe in. And are you displaying that regularly? Are you treating people with fairness, within the organization and externally? How do you accept and navigate through challenges? How do you deal with that internally within your staff? How do you communicate? So these are kind of some of the very important things, integral, that I find, that I've learned along the way, because I was not a born entrepreneur. I don't believe I was a born entrepreneur. I think I was created, to be quite honestly, and I think it's some people are like, just when they're little, they just know that I want to be an entrepreneur, but it wasn't that for me.
Well, that's very interesting. So how did this land on your lap then to have this company that you're now running?
Yeah, I had a friend of mine who had approached me with the idea. Is this something? He said, okay, you know what? I'm a very risk averse person, and I think most of us are, right? When you have basic necessities that you need to, you know, cover, your housing, your rent, your daily needs, and then it's like, how do you transition from a corporate position or having a regular job to being a full-time entrepreneur, where there are a lot of ebbs and flows. So I think the idea was really planted in me by a friend of mine, and I said, you know what, let me do this in a way where I can mitigate risk, and then be able to grow. Once I got to a point where we were able to be sustainable, I decided that, you know what, let's go all in, because this will cover, the basic necessities that I have, and then we'll be able to see where we grow.
Wow, that's amazing. So you took a liking to it. I guess you start to see it and go like, my God, I can do this, right? And then you went like, okay, let's go all in. That's amazing. That's a great story. I love it.
I'm not
Uh,
going to lie. There are some days where I'm like, can I really do this? You question it, because being an entrepreneur is very, very difficult. You're juggling so many things at one time. You're juggling. I have about close to 50 staff right now. We're doing, business in a lot of different countries. We're in the US, we're in Mexico, Venezuela, Puerto Rico, we're in Pakistan, Dubai, Saudi Arabia. We recently expanded to India and the Philippines. And so having those relationships with not only your connecting partners overseas, but also your staff, and then dealing with the day-to-day challenges of talking to your clients, making sure they're happy, if there are any challenges, or thinking about the growth of the organization. And we are, our future is where we were going to dabble into some tech, so let's see where that goes. So it's fun, it's exciting, but it's also, it's daunting at times, that you question, like, can I really do this, and then you kind of have to refocus and make it.
oh, I totally get it. Yeah, I mean, again, I think that's the life that you got to decide to live that kind of that to take on that kind of responsibility. And I really like what you said earlier. It's like you grow into it, right? Um, because again, as an entrepreneur, you create something out of nothing. You know, like before, Capital Med Solution didn't exist 20 years ago. No, nobody
Exactly.
handed over you the keys and say, hey, this is how it works. You know, you took it on, you said,
Exactly.
okay, well,
It's like neither did Coca-Cola, or neither did Google, or neither did, all of these companies. And so, all you can do is is the best you can do with what you have, right? And have a positive, optimistic mindset. You have to take on challenges as a learning, as a learning experience. Um, and there are plenty of them. I sometimes feel like being an entrepreneur is a little bit more difficult than being, in the corporate world. That has its challenges too, but it's you're in 9 to 5, you're done. It's somebody else's headache, at the end of the day, if that's how you think. But when you're an entrepreneur, everything is yours. It all belongs to you. It requires a lot of sacrifices, time away from your family, your friends, your loved ones, to be able to build something that you really believe in.
oh, 100%. But it's got its rewards too, right? I mean, the freedom, the the pride, the pride of having built something, and to, like the impact that you can have on in society. I mean, look at you. You're having an impact not just in the US, but in many other countries through the team that you've built. I mean, it's beautiful, right?
Yeah.
Now,
We're creating opportunity. I think, that's really what drives me, is a few things. One is, we're creating opportunity for areas that otherwise wouldn't. We're very, very blessed, I believe, in some of the countries that we live in, Canada and the U.S. and in the U.K. Some of these countries are very, very abundant in opportunity. And other countries don't have that opportunity. They have the talent. People have the grit. They have the the skills. They just need the opportunity. So, we're helping provide the opportunity. And then on the other side, the services that we're providing to patients and to providers, it's really a need. We're helping bridge the gap here. We also help with, referral management, which is a service that helps with, creating, maintaining a link between two providers.
Mhm.
When a provider, a primary care provider says, you need to go see a cardiologist. And then there's a whole process, especially in America. The way the insurance works here is very, very discouraging, right? All forces work against you as a provider and even as a patient to get the quality of care that you need. There are certain obstacles that you have to go through and processes you have to follow to be able to get to the specialist. When you get to the specialist, now your primary care provider doesn't really know what's going on. So we help kind of loop everybody in.
That's great.
Yes, we like to connect them. So, there's so many services like that we provide that kind of help make healthcare just a little bit better.
That's great. I love it. I love it. Okay, so now look, you grow something and you as an entrepreneur, you grow and you hire people and you delegate to them, right? I mean, again, you got 50, you mentioned you got 50 staff. Delegation, I find, is one of the big challenge that business owners have, because again, it's your baby, right? You want to, and you want people to continue to go down the same line as you are going down. How do you, again, we don't have, I'm sure you probably could talk for hours on this, but in a few sentences, how do you choose your team and how do you go about delegating tasks to them to keep on that continuity, that culture that you have developed in your company?
Sure. When we're hiring somebody, there's a couple of key things we're looking for. One is some degree of stability in their work history. It doesn't have to be 5, 7, 8 years. It can be, a year and a half, 2 years. We want to be able to see what kind of impact they made, why they chose the companies they chose. Sometimes it is, you'll run across those folks that just need a job, and that happens. It's normal. But what did they gain from it? That's what I look for when I'm interviewing and bringing on staff. And what is the direction you want to go in? Anytime we hire somebody on, I tell them it's okay if your vision and your goal is different than mine. You don't have to be in this company. I don't expect you to be here for 10 years. But while you're here, I want to see some kind of an impact. And, there's a purpose. If you're not with the purpose or the mission, this is not for you.
Yeah.
Right. So, but if you have a different vision, like I have someone who's working for me right now, is going to engineering school. And, as long as they're dedicated and committed, have open lines of communication, have a positive outlook, that's really all it takes to be successful, I think, in general. So, you're welcome on board. And then when it's time for you to move on to the next step, we will happily, send you off and help you even in your next, phase in your life. So that's really important. Number one, that's what we look for in the staff. And then number two is, do we have synergy? When they're working with us, is there synergy? Is there a sense of excitement to do something better than what we did yesterday?
Hmm.
So that's what we really look for, and communication has been very, very key for my team and the growth.
I, this is great. Totally understand. I mean, again, it's the communication is what keeps the team together, right? And the purpose is what aligns everybody in the same direction. I think you summarized it very well, and it's probably why you have a great team. Seems like it'd be a great place to work in your company.
I like
Uh,
to think so.
yeah, yeah, you've been a pretty good team. That sounds like a fun place to be. This is great. In terms of growth and every time you grow, you increase the volume, right, of what's going on and what happens within the organization. When you increase the volume of work or the traffic within an organization, usually the weak points are all popping out, right? This is usually
Mhm.
what happens. It's a natural law of organization. Um, how do you deal with these weaknesses that show up as you grow the organization? So you contain this. How does that work with you?
Yeah, growing pains is something we have frequently, ran across. We're actually in that phase, I think, right now, where we have certain key things that, like you mentioned, come up that you have to figure out and how you will be navigating through it. So we just take it one bite at a time. It's like you kind of you prioritize what's the most important, and then you try to work from there. You can't, take on everything at one time. It would be impossible to fix all the problems at once. You can't do that, right? So you have to take your most important and biggest problem and see how create a strategy with your team. We believe in brainstorming together. It's not one person who says this is how we're going to do it. It's more of a team effort on, what is the best solution to this, and then we try it. So there's a lot of trial and error that's involved too, because I think there's not really a guidebook on exactly how to do this. I know there's many books out there that tell you, this is what you can do, but every situation and scenario is so different.
There cannot be a one guidebook for that fits all. I mean, again, a company is a bit of a representation of yourself. You put yourself in it, and there's a little bit of you in there, and it's as in itself, it's an entity that is very individual, that has its own individual needs. Yes, there are natural laws, and there are things that usually the general guideline. But I think you're right. And you hit on the nail on this, right? The fact that you bring your team together, I think it's a fantastic strategy, right? Instead of you coming up with a solution and just kicking it down, right? Or having one of your execs, okay, you get these guys, you get together, everybody contributes. And what I like about this system is that because somebody contributes, it's their solutions too. It's not something that's handed over to them. So it's part of my solutions too. So now you get way better buy-in and way better cooperation when it's implemented. So
And I
I love
think it
to
also
hear
gives an opportunity for others to learn too, right? There
that.
are some levels of seniority of people that have a little bit more experience in some areas than others. And so I think when you come together, you're also able to exchange ideas. And there's a lot of things I learn from my team, regularly. I have a clinical team that I'm regularly learning something from. I didn't go to school for medicine. I didn't, do anything in terms of from a clinical aspect, but have I learned it? Absolutely. And a lot of it has been taught by my staff, which I'm very grateful for, So I think that's been very, very important for me to keep myself grounded, and not get too big for your britches, because that can happen, right? Like as you grow and as you think that you're, a leader or whatever it is, and although we're not as huge as some of our competitors, but as you're growing, you still, like you said, you get a sense of pride and accomplishment, but that can also get to your head. So you have to humble yourself and say,
Love it.
hey, I'm really not all it. I need my team. I need people to really make this happen.
I love to hear that. And I love it because, again, being an executive or being a CEO or business owner gives you a privilege. And that's how I see it. And I hear this from you. And pretty much all the successful executive I hear, they say the same thing as you say. It's it's a privilege to serve others, right? It's really as an executive, you're not there as a status to order people down. You're there to serve them and to help them and to give them guidance and coordination. So this thing that's been created, that you've created, keeps on growing. Everybody has a win this way. It's
Absolutely. And that goes back to your question earlier, right? Like, how do you replicate? How do you, as you're growing, and how do you not micromanage, right? How do you train some of these folks and create certain levels of growth where you can trust people to get the job done? So, at first, there are times where you have to micromanage. There will be times where you say, you know what, I'm really afraid to let this go and trust somebody with it. but do you have the skill sets? Do you have the attitude? Do you have, you know, do you have what it takes to do it, even fail, which is fine? But can you accept that it's okay that you did something wrong, but can we get back up and can we get moving again? You know, because I'm not without any flaw. You know, I have plenty of things that I can continue to work on. And that's how you have to be with your staff too, I think, and with your team, that you will make mistakes, and it's okay. Some mistakes will cost you more than others, but that's also okay, right? It's also okay, as long as you have the right attitude about it and it wasn't intentional, and you have diligence with with your work, then you can minimize those mistakes and errors.
100%. I mean, it's part of growth. This is the growth process. I mean, you cannot expect to be the best or to keep on excelling if you don't somewhere along the line, make some mistakes. I mean, it's part of the process. There's so many books and quotes on this, and it's being willing to shoulder it and to go with it. I think this is really what makes a great executive. So again, what you mentioned is super good. I'm very happy to hear that from you. This is great content for the podcast. Okay, well, this is great. Okay, so look, I could talk with you for another hour or so, but we're pretty much at the end of this. I'd like to ask you one more question, and you kind of like briefly told us a little bit about this. What are your plans for the future, for the next year or so? Where's Capital Med Solution going in the next year or so?
Yeah, so Capital Med Solutions, we will continue with the growth of the service-based, operations. That is definitely that's there. But as I mentioned, the technology, we want to leverage some of these new technologies that are coming out, like AI, to make the work that we're currently doing more efficient, and be able to provide certain platforms that don't exist right now in the market. I don't want to talk too much about it, but there's a few
Oh,
things that are exciting that are in the works that we'll be testing out with providers to help them make their practices more efficient. At the end of the day, we come in, we look at a practice as a very holistic view. Is your front end, your back end, your billing team, your clinical team, is everybody working well together? And are there any areas where we can bridge the gap, whether it's internally within a practice or practice to practice? Right. So the tools are what we are going to be working on, and we are working on creating for the practices, both for Capital Med Solutions and for and to be able to actually market the products to private practice. So stay tuned for that. That's coming up, but that's very, very preliminary stages. But I'm very excited about it.
I can see that. I can see that. I'm sure your team really is as well. I mean, again, and this is great, right? Because you're really putting a future there for you and you're expanding the playing field and all of this, and that really pulls people in. Right? It makes it worthwhile to come to work and to contribute to such a vision that you have. Hey, look, pretty much at the end of the podcast. That was great. Thank you very much for sharing all of this, your journey, the company itself, and what it does. I think it's inspirational, and I'm really, really happy to have had this conversation with you, Alisha.
Thank you so much, Philippe. I appreciate your time.
Excellent. Okay, great. So at this point, I'm just sign off. So this is Philippe for Beyond Business as Usual. See you next time on the next interview. Thank you very much. Bye for now.